Thank you for joining us for this Inside Ag special. I'm Hunter Funk. Now, we started the Inside Ag franchise last summer to focus on more stories key to the Idaho economy and culture. Agriculture, something consumers often take for granted. The milk in the fridge, the steak on a grill, onions on a burger. Now, farmers and ranchers in the Gem State feed Idahoans, but they also feed people across the country and the world. We wanted to take a deeper dive at what it takes to make sure that food makes it to your table. But it's also more than just a product. There are people behind every step, the laborers, the distributors, and the farmers. And to those people, it's more than just a job, it's a way of life. Today, we're taking a look back on stories we featured throughout the spring season, and we're kicking it off with Idaho Ag Day in the State House. On March 18th, Governor Brad Little proclaimed the day to be celebrated accordingly. Groups representing different ag commissions showed up for the big day to share what kind of work they do in the Gem State. Take a look. Ask Idaho Governor Brad Little what today is.
Read my proclamation.
Okay, it's a bit long, but to give you the Cliff Notes, it says Idaho agriculture contributes more than $10.8 billion to the state economy, has the 5th largest agricultural economy in the United States, with 23,000 farms and ranches producing more than 185 different commodities, and Idaho impacts the international food supply, making the state crucial in feeding the world. Go to the very end, and that's where Governor Little proclaims March 18th as Idaho Agriculture Day.
There are a lot of people that have moved to Idaho that just don't realize how big agriculture is.
It's a celebration. And more than 15 different commodity groups filled the rotunda, giving legislators and the public a chance to learn more about Idaho agriculture and the significance it has in our state.
Ag is the lifeblood of Idaho. It's the lifeblood of America. Without agriculture, we don't have food on our table.
It's what helps produce our clothes on our backs, what provide jobs for everybody, and it's a livelihood across most of the nation.
More than 98% of Americans don't have a direct connection to agriculture in their day-to-day life, but are impacted by what's created from the industry. And this day celebrates the 2% of people focused on feeding America. So to celebrate this day, here's something you might not know about some of Idaho's commodities. First up, the mint industry.
Idaho is the #1 producer of peppermint oil, and we're 3rd in spearmint oil production in the nation. There are 73 growers in the state of Idaho, most of them in the Treasure Valley or up near Pend Oreille regions. And there is 17,500 acres of mint being produced in the nation annually.
Next, the Honey and Bee Association, where there's 140 colonies thriving in Idaho.
A lot of people, the first thing they think about bees is the honey. And as though honey is very important and enjoyable, it also is the backbone for a lot of our plant commodities as it pollinates plants all around. Bees help pollinate anything from alfalfa to the cloves and cucumbers that we find in our gardens. So it is a key staple for agriculture, not only in Idaho, but across our nation.
Of course, you can't forget the Idaho Beef Council, where livestock production by value is Idaho's #1 agriculture sector.
Our biggest initiative right now is teaching the people in Idaho about the cattle ranchers that raise the delicious and nutritious steak on their plate.
And the Cattle Association, Idaho's voice in the beef community since 1915.
We represent more than 6,000 ranching families in the state, and I contribute almost $3 billion to the state economy. Idaho was built on agriculture. The roots, the values, the qualities, the contribution is just so important, and we want to make sure that our Idahoans have access to the information and that we're well represented for all walks of life.
We could make like a TV show instead of like dirty jobs, but we did odd jobs. I think Idaho would probably win.
And like any office needs a person to drop off the printer paper or take the cell phone calls, there are the odd jobs in Idaho's ag industry that you might not think about. We shadowed one of those jobs, and it plays a big role in how dairy operations remain successful in Idaho. This van.
Obviously my van is kind of ridiculous, but it brings people happiness.
It gets filled with nitrogen and hits the Idaho back roads.
I cover anywhere from Mountain Home area all the way across the state to like Raft River, American Falls, that kind of area, and then everything down to like the Utah-Nevada border.
This service is an essential part driving the success of the dairy industry. But what exactly is this service?
I sell like dairy semen to the dairies, obviously. So it's for AI eggs, for artificial insemination.
From delivering semen and breeding supplies to bringing producers nitrogen to keep everything cold, Whitney Sandberg brings the product to the dairies.
Each one of the dairies, they have different types of semen that they like to use. So out here, these guys get restocked every couple weeks. I come out and just check on them, make sure that they have everything that they need.
With an increasing demand for dairy products and Idaho among the top 3 in the U.S. for producing cheese and milk, improving production efficiency is important. A study by Cambridge University shows incorporating sexed semen into breeding at a dairy can accelerate herd expansion because dairies can predetermine the calf's gender.
It is really important to have as many females as we can coming into the herd. Got to have those independent girls out there.
And it lowers the health risks that can come from bringing in animals from different herds to breed. Sandberg says overall, it's better for the cow's health.
My job is to make sure that they have the strongest and healthiest herd that they possibly can, and to make sure that all their needs are met, especially with the young ones coming up, making sure all the baby calves are as strong and healthy as they can be and can stick around the herd as long as they can.
Her job keeps dairies operating.
So this is full of liquid nitrogen, this little one's full of liquid nitrogen. So everything stays permanently frozen.
Sandberg hopes people see how many jobs can go into creating a product and understand that these workers are making sure it's the best product for consumers and what's best for the animals too.
You don't think about every little tiny aspect. I'm one person who goes to the dairy, and they have hundreds of different people who stop by each week or each day to make sure that they are stocked up and they have proper equipment. Everyone just goes to the store and picks up your milk, and they don't really think about how many people go into making that one thing.
Coming up, sustainable farming isn't just a trend for a local winery. We're going to tell you how sheep are keeping its operation eco-friendly. Ag producers are finding ways to keep operations green. Today, we're going to show you how a winery in Canyon County, where their sustainability isn't just a buzzword, but a way of life. If you've ever wondered what wine, sheep, bees, and McDonald's could possibly have in common, well, you're about to find out. On 35 acres in Wilder, you'll find one woman
what is my title?
who wears all the hats.
I do everything.
Everything includes owning Carey Hill Winery,
It's been all trimmed and pruned.
a place that takes their environmental responsibility
This is where our sustainability comes in.
very seriously. It starts with the sheep.
I have been raising Carey Hill sheep. Carey Hill sheep are only basically found in Northern Ireland, England, and Wales, and they're not allowed to be exported, and the United States does not import them.
Hard to find, but that didn't stop Mindy Mayer from spending years of breeding to get some.
And I was the first person last spring, a year ago, to have 4 ewe lambs born that were 100% and 2 ram lambs born. That the first in the United States, so I'm very proud of that.
Hard to find, but also hard to miss.
Black eyes, black noses, black knees, black feet, and then their wool is really very special.
And that wool goes here.
So I take the wool and we're going to be replacing it now. You can barely see the wool now. This is from a couple years ago, but that wool, it retains the water, it's antimicrobial, and it reflects up to ripen the grapes.
The entire winery is a live certified sustainable vineyard.
I'm only the second person in the state of Idaho to be certified. There's a lot of work, but everything that goes into the ground is measured, and it has to pass certain rules and regulations to get certified.
She's considered salmon safe, which means everything that goes into the ground and comes out into the river is safe for the fish. But wait, that's not all.
Then we're bee-friendly farmers.
She mentioned that she does everything, and she's right.
I don't know if I told you this either, but I own McDonald's restaurants.
And it's the McDonald's mantra that built her passion.
You will have gold standard fries and gold standard Big Macs, and your places will be gold standard clean and, you know, gold standard customer service and product and everything. And that's how I kind of view my vineyard. It'll always be gold standard.
She even has a McHive for her bees at the winery. For her, it's about doing something good.
It makes me no money, except I have pride that I'm doing something to try to bring back.
And she has no plans of stopping soon.
Monarch butterflies.
At this winery, it's more than just
This is my Pinot Gris.
great tasting wine,
People are loving Tempranillo. I've won a lot of awards with my Tempranillo.
but rather taking an earth-friendly approach to farming.
And it's just incredible how fast these grow.
It's not just about farms and livestock. After the break, we're diving into the water to learn how researchers are feeding fish a plant-based diet to keep the ocean ecosystem healthy. Fish are known for being a great source of high-quality protein and omega-3 fatty acids, which are beneficial for heart and brain health. The Magic Valley is home to one of the nation's top fish-producing regions. We learned as our natural resources change, scientists are working on ways to make the industry more sustainable. In Idaho, you can find Thousand Springs State Park.
The immense kind of water resources that we have here are extremely valuable.
Multiple springs flow along the Snake River in the western Magic Valley. Many of them feed into the fish hatcheries.
All of our water comes from either seep tunnels or directly from springs upstream from us here.
The cold springs don't just feed our rivers, they're fueling innovation in aquaculture.
We're here at the Hagerman Fish Culture Experiment Station. These are our breeding raceways. So the raceways are these long cylindrical cement tanks, more or less. The way that we raise rainbow trout here is we take advantage of flow-through spring water. So we have water entering the raceways at the head boxes and then flowing in a very laminar flow fashion and then passing out through the raceways. Hagerman and Buell, all along this region of the Snake River, is really kind of a mecca for aquaculture in the state. We're #1 in rainbow trout production, #2 in sturgeon and caviar, #4, believe it or not, in warm water tilapia production, #5 in overall aquaculture product value.
Aquaculture is a big portion of the Magic Valley. Right, we raise rainbow trout more here than anywhere in the U.S.
But it's what the fish are eating that's creating a ripple in the industry. Traditional trout feed relies on ingredients like ground dried fish, which is expensive and increasingly hard to find.
Fish meal and fish oil have been the primary protein and oil sources in aquaculture. They are very limited. There's not enough now to go around to feed aquaculture it is. So we need a sustainable replacement source.
Because of this, USDA and University of Idaho researchers have been trying something new, developing rainbow trout that thrive on plant-based diets.
On that protein source, they can grow as well as they did on the fish meal, and without giving them fish oil, we still get those heart and brain healthy omega-3 fatty acids that were previously required you to feed them fish oil, now using plant oils.
They started this 20 years ago, and today it's proving its success.
Diets are the #1 input cost for farm producers of aquaculture. So by being able to use those cheaper plant-based ingredients while still creating a very, adapted diet that's going to meet all of the needs of the fish, we're able to greatly reduce the input costs to those farmers and allow them to produce still a very nutritious and wholesome protein source for its human consumers, but at a reduced input cost, allowing the farmers to have just a little bit more profit margin, hopefully.
These scientists have been breeding fish that can digest corn, soy, peas, even sorghum.
It's selective breeding. So we've got a trait that we want to improve. We know the variation's there, and we have selected on that trait.
The goal? Get these super rainbow trout sustainably raised without pressure on ocean ecosystems and to be safe for consumers.
We know what went into that fish. We know mercury is not going to be there. We know it's going to be fed and be appropriate for the consumers to ingest. And it's going to relieve that harvest pressure on those wild populations.
Now, to put it in perspective, Idaho leads the nation in rainbow trout production and ends up on the dinner plate. So once this research is refined, and with around 80 fish farms in the Magic Valley alone, Many farmers who make the changes to their feed could see a big cost savings, so more return on their investment. All right, coming up, the Gem State is leading the way in sturgeon farming. We're going to tell you how fish hatcheries are serving up fine dining for consumers. Back in the water now. For centuries, white sturgeon have called Idaho Snake River home. But decades ago, their survival was in question. But now, thanks to collaborative efforts and some innovative research, not only is the species thriving, but it's also helping Idaho lead its way in sturgeon farming. We're going to take you to Hagerman and explain. White sturgeon have been swimming through the Idaho waters for generations, some growing more than 10 feet long and living over 100 years. But not long ago, these ancient fish were almost gone.
The population was becoming threatened for white sturgeon here in the Snake River. And the sturgeon populations that were native here were under lots of different pressures, from different anthropogenic land use and different runoff that caused. Of course, being able to put in hydroelectric power throughout the reaches from here all the way to the Columbia has changed their migratory pathways, as well as just kind of overfishing in those early 1800s.
By the 1980s, those same waters were nearly silent, and something had to change. Idaho Fish and Game, Idaho Power, University of Idaho, and CSI all came together to rear sturgeon in the hatcheries and replant them into the river. That conservation effort not only saved the species, it sparked a booming new industry.
After that program had subsided, there was extra fish left over that were used to be able to create the thriving white sturgeon industry that we now have here in Idaho.
The Magic Valley is the heart of it all. A few years ago, there were 10 caviar producers, and while that number has lowered, Idaho still ranks second in the United States for sturgeon and caviar, behind only California. And chefs across the country are taking notice.
Many chefs will tell you that the white sturgeon here in Idaho produce some of the most sought-after caviar, particularly within the nation, but internationally as well.
But producing that prized caviar isn't easy or cheap.
For a caviar fish, you're going to hold on to that female for some 14 years before you're able to harvest caviar. So you can think about kind of the liability, cost, and risk that goes into that.
That's why researchers at the University of Idaho are now focused on one thing: the fish's diet.
We've put a lot of effort into researching ways to improve the nutritional inputs. So can we reduce the cost of those ingredients that go into the diets while we're still producing a high-performing diet that takes care of all the nutritional requirements of sturgeon, but at a lower price point?
They work on balancing protein, fats, and carbs to make it cheaper for producers to run the business. They're not just looking at growth, but making sure fish stay healthy and produce top-quality caviar and fillets.
We also had to watch and make sure that these diets weren't causing excess of visceral fat, where those fish would be depositing excess nutrients in the internal cavity of the fish. So we made sure that we were selecting a diet that was actually growing harvestable fillet product or creating a more valuable caviar egg clutch as well.
It's research that could help keep Idaho's sturgeon industry profitable for decades to come.
Being able to reduce some of those input costs in the production pipeline is going to help those businesses, continue to thrive and push out the valuable products that they have for consumers.
Now, as for fishing for sturgeon, fishers, listen up to this, all must be released unharmed, and it's illegal to remove a sturgeon from the water. It's called low-impact fishing, and it helps keep the population strong for the next generation of Idahoans. All right, after the break, we're going to show you a teacher who made her lessons more interactive. She says why the hands-on element is essential to students' learning. For some kids, exposure to farming and where food comes from starts in the classroom. And a teacher at a virtual school in Emmett is making a real difference in the world of ag education. Abigail Heikes teaches at Idaho Technical Career Academy. It's a virtual school where she teaches ag classes like plant and animal science. Now, in 2022, she noticed her online students were struggling to connect with the practical aspects of agriculture and animal science. So to bridge that gap, she transformed her backyard. Get this, she put up a greenhouse and a living laboratory, both with cameras that track and follow her every movement in class. She also drops off seeds, soil kits, even animals to dissect at their front door. It allows the students to understand the production process and watch their own seeds sprout and flourish in real time.
I'd come from a brick and mortar. I'd worked in a greenhouse before. I'd had animal lab facilities, and I wanted to figure out how, in the spirit of giving every student the best opportunity possible, no matter what their education setup looks like, how we could bring agriculture to them. And it started with the greenhouse. How can we ship students plants? How can I get them interactive? Even though I'm the one doing it, how are they also involved? And it grew into our animal science lab as well.
Heikes is instrumental in growing the ag program at ITCA, and students can get certifications in the ag industry while taking her classes. All right, thanks for joining us for this Inside Ag Spring Special. When we come back, we're going to tell you about the demand for potatoes, how it's lowering in the Gem State, and how a local school is encouraging kids to get their hands dirty, and of course, what you can look forward to on Saturday mornings this coming summer.